I have just recently finished a third playthrough of Mass Effect Andromeda. I did my first one on PC, going into this coming N7 day, with maybe the next game coming sometime in the next decade. I wanted to play it again, but properly. I'd only played on Xbox before, Series X. It doesn't have a 60 FPS patch or mods or anything. So I played on PC. I did some quality of life mods. I really enjoyed my playthrough, and I wanted to show you the mods I used and talk about why maybe you should use them. Okay, I am over here on Nexus Mods. I'm going to start off with a couple of quality of life ones. Really, they're mostly quality of life, but we'll get into it. The first one here is Mass Effect Andromeda Fixpack. This is one that it just fixes a bunch of small bugs. So if you've played the Legendary Edition or the original trilogy on PC, you know that there's like the community mods and things like that, the community patches. This, as well as the next one, seem to be the closest thing we got to that. They don't appear to be super in depth, but seem to fix a bunch of small things. Pretty much everywhere I looked, this was recommended, and that's why I used it. It is interesting. You'll see in the red text that this is only compatible with version 1.1 of the game and up. You'll also notice a trend here. This mod was actually updated fairly recently in 2021, so it's 4 years ago. That isn't always the case, but I highly suggest this one if you want to get just a bunch of the small things fixed up in the game. Okay, here is the next one. This is Fix's Addendum. This is another one, much like the Mass Effect Andromeda Fix Pack. This one has a decent number of more specific things pointed out, mission blockers and things like that it fixes. This is another one that I just saw almost universally suggested by everyone, and it seems to fix a bunch of small things, but things that in a regular playthrough you would probably notice. I will admit, even with these mods, there was still a decent number of things I noticed popped up in the game and things like that were maybe not the best or still kind of unfinished or buggy. But overall, I did notice an improvement in the general condition of the game compared to what I'd done before. So here's an example. You see the vanilla, in the vanilla version of the game, that building is levitating off the ground. In the modded version, it is actually touching the ground. And just stuff like that. Yeah, like here it had just an empty area. This actually shows what it looks like outside, things like that. The next one is Better Squad. This is one that it seems to just kind of fix the behaviors of your AI squad mates. It doesn't improve it a ton. I'm basically going off of recommendation here. This is one of the ones that literally released, within months of the or a fairly short time after the original game came out. But the reviews were good. When I looked at suggested mod lists, this was one of them that came up basically on every single list, and I do suggest it. The squad mates, in the way that works in general, isn't really loved in Andromeda. To truly fix it, you would basically have to redesign the entire system, and unfortunately, whether it was because of Frostbite or whether it was just because of the game not really being all that popular, obviously no one dove in and really did that, at least as far as I can tell. But this is one of those things where I guess any improvement is a good one. So I had no issues with this one. This one here, Shaved Scott Ryder, is a kind of a personal preference maybe. I really struggle with these kind of games of making my own character. I think the character creator in Andromeda is pretty awful. I don't know if I've ever seen someone make, using the stock character creator, one that looks very good. I think the stock Ryder looks fine, and obviously like everything was designed to potentially use that generic stock Ryder, or at least with Scott. And but what I hated was his wispy beard in the base game. It just looks so terrible, but you can't add a beard to him like from the character creator. And I saw there were some mods. There's various mods that maybe address this. This one here seemed like the best fit for me, and it just made more sense because the stock Ryder, Scott Ryder, has this like, his beard, it must have a total of like 50 strands. It looks so bad. And as someone who has a kind of stringy beard, I want to live my best life in my video game. I found this to be way less distracting and to just look better in general. So the shaved Scott Ryder mod got my recommendation. A classic one, I've seen people recommend this literally everywhere, but the Shut Up Sam mod. Basically, Sam is the AI that is in the implant in your head that gives you all of your tactical information and everything. Basically, almost the whole game is based around it, but it talks all the time in the base configuration. The top line here down here in the about this mod is, I know it's cold, Sam, because literally every time you get out of a car, every time you go outside, every time you go inside, every time you go anywhere or near anything, Sam comments on it. So this mod here significantly reduces the number of times or the instances that will trigger Sam to speak. And in this last playthrough I did, Sam is there. It doesn't remove any of the important stuff. But I don't remember, like in my previous playthroughs, being annoyed with Sam. Sam was just there when I needed them. We have a few here that will be, I guess, kind of personal preference. This one is the Turians Restored mod. So here you see that they kind of do their best to restore kind of the trilogy look of the Turians. Here's a good example with the left being the stock, the way the game looks normally, and then the right being the one, the modded version. There's only so much you can really do, but even just the basic recoloring, making them look a little more like what we're used to seeing from the trilogy, where that like extremely white coloration is something I don't think we ever saw in the trilogy, and the one on the right being a little more in line with what we did see. It looks pretty good. If you go through, it kind of makes them all look a little more gritty. Vetra is a good example here, where you see it's just, it kind of looks like they just changed the contrast almost. But I think it does look better. It feels a little more grounded and a little less silly. In the base version of the game, some of them like literally have like no texture on their heads. And so it just looks like they're perfectly smooth, which, as far as I know, isn't the case with the Turians in the trilogy and the ones that we know of in general. So I do suggest this Turians Restored mod. Okay, here we have a similar one, the Turian Makeover mod. This one, so I stacked both of these. I would be curious to see if they both showed up or they both did anything. When you look at some of the things that changed, I believe from what I remember, the one on the right is what it changes. It makes them look like the one on the left. Here's a good example here of, the biggest thing here is looking at the lighting. So the one on the right doesn't have any shading around its eyes. It's like there's no light on it at all, almost. Where the one on the left, they do have that like kind of, their brows and, their carapace or whatever, kind of does go outside of their soft fleshy parts, and it represents it a little bit better. This is just another one where, doing our best to, for lack of a better term, put lipstick on a pig, where we're trying to make this game look as good as we can. And this is one of the ones I tried out. I didn't notice any negative effects, and overall, I would recommend it. This is one I'm a little more mixed on. I did the more skill points per level. This mod actually there's like 5 different versions of this you can download, where it gives you just a few extra points or a ton of extra points. I believe there was even one where it just gave you like all the points immediately. The one I went a little too far, and by I was level, I want to say 45 or so at the end of the game, and I had like 100 extra points. So I went a little too aggressive, but the game really does open up, and I feel like the combat and just the exploration and stuff, it does just feel better when you're fully decked out. And obviously getting the choice to use whatever skills and things that you want did feel good. And so I'm glad I did it. If you're looking for the more authentic experience, I maybe wouldn't suggest it, but you can kind of do whatever you want. You can literally just get a few extra points, or you can make it more substantial. It's kind of a customized thing with the more skill points per level mod. Here we have the Better Beards mod. So I use the stock Ryder, as I talked about before, but I believe this replaced the beards for all of the NPCs. If you play the base game, at least I remember noticing how terrible most of the beards looked. This mod basically just fills them in a little bit better, and makes them look, marginally better. So here's a good example. If you look on the one on the left, it's extremely thin and almost looks like acne or something. The one on the right looks a little bit better. It's a little more clear, a little more defined. Same here. It just looks more like, kind of, 5 o'clock shadow growth. Where on the left, it kind of just looks like there's something wrong with their skin. So this is one of those ones where if you don't care about that, or you're not going to use a custom character like I didn't, maybe you don't use it. But all I remember is that through the playthrough, as I was talking to characters and stuff like that, I don't ever remember noticing like, oh God, that beard looks awful. I just stopped noticing them. And that was kind of my goal with half of these mods, was to just make sure there weren't things that would distract me that didn't look great or felt unfinished or whatever. And this was this Better Beards mod was a good one for that. This one, pretty self-explanatory. The fast mining mod, from what I remember, is this one basically makes it where if you drop one mine in an area, it just mines the entire region around that loadout point, that dropship point. I don't know. I didn't do a ton of crafting and stuff like that in this game. I don't really like the system they have too much. So maybe this wasn't useful at all. It was just nice to be driving through. It would say, hey, there's a mining deposit here. Hit the button to pull up the mining menu, hit one button for the mine to drop the probe, and then just take off, and it was done. If you don't care about this, or you like the way that the vanilla system is, I guess go ahead and use it. I found this to be very useful, even though I'm not even positive I actually got that much out of it. I'm glad I had it, just because it made that process seem like it wasn't hanging over my head. That's with the fast mining mod. This one feels like a little weird. I'm not really into these mods that drastically change the way the characters look, but the Pretty Cora mod is one that, and honestly, I even compared what she looks like compared to the vanilla version, and she does look different. I don't know if it's just some of the shading they did on the face or whatever. I did find that while in the vanilla game, at times her appearance can just look kind of bizarre or odd. This one, I basically, it was kind of what I said before, I just didn't notice it as much. The eye colorations and stuff you can pick from, there's versions of the mod that you can select. This is one where I just to talk about my playthrough, I actually typically have romanced her in the first two playthroughs. I end up going with PB this time, which I'll do a whole video about my thoughts about this playthrough, so be sure to look out for that. But I still interacted with Cora a ton. Obviously, at the beginning of the game, she's one of your primary companions. So this one, for whatever it does, I thought it did make her character seem a little more like normal looking, for whatever that's worth. So that is the Pretty Cora mod. This is probably the simplest one that I have on here. It's the massively increased inventory size mod. It literally makes your inventory 99,999. I don't know if you come even close. I'd be surprised if you pick up more than 1,000 or 2 items in this entire game. I guess when you're picking up materials and scrap and stuff to sell, maybe it can get higher. But this was nice. There's no reason for this limit. I'm sure this was a console thing for when the game came out for the PS4 and Xbox One. They probably just had a memory limitation. Maybe this was a thing where they wanted people to have to do the whole like check back in and dump off all your stuff thing. I personally find that in most games to feel stupid. So this was a huge quality of life improvement, and I'm very glad I used it, because it made the experience of playing this game just a lot simpler. So I didn't have to worry about it. I could just go out and do stuff as long as I wanted, and then come back and sell everything whenever I was ready. So that is the massively increased inventory size. And then the last one here, again, one of the fairly simple ones, the Balanced Weapons Patch mod. This, again, is one of the ones that's kind of focused on that most recent patch. It is kind of crazy to think that this 1.1 patch was what a lot of these mods were focused on. And this mod was released in July of 2017. So it kind of tells you that they really kind of made this game, put it out, and just kind of moved on to Anthem. And I suspect in hindsight that was, maybe they would have done things differently, but that's how hindsight works. They couldn't have known at the time, and we are where we are. So this one, it literally just makes some of the things more powerful. Some of the guns feel better. Some some of the guns are real dogs in the base game. And this, as far as I could tell, every gun I picked up, they felt different, but they all felt viable. And I assume that's what this was meant to do, especially with pistols and things like that. A big complaint about this game by some people were the enemies feeling bullet spongy and stuff like that. I never really felt like that, especially as I upgraded my equipment, my guns, and my character and skills and all that. But this seemed to make a difference too. Where in the base game on console, I remember thinking like, oh man, this feels so, tedious, the combat and stuff like that at times. I'd never felt like that during this entire playthrough, even at the end, as I wrapped up the playthrough at the very end of the game where things get very bullet spongy. I didn't notice that this time. So the balanced weapons patch mod is one I would definitely recommend. And that's my list. It's not exhaustive. It's fairly small. The one thing you'll notice when you get into modding Andromeda is that there aren't a ton of mods for it. And most of them are extremely old, like most of the ones I showed you here. And there, as far as I can tell, aren't really many new mods coming out. And there haven't been in a long time. Kind of makes sense, all things considered. I really enjoyed this playthrough of Andromeda. I don't know if it was because of these mods or just because, I know more about Mass Effect now than I did before, because I kind of changed my mindset. I played this time kind of thinking ahead to the next Mass Effect and how this may be incorporated into that. So maybe the different perspective. The game still has lots of issues, things I don't love about it. I'm going to do, like I said before, a whole separate video. So keep an eye out for that, just about how I'm feeling about Andromeda now and how that will impact my how I'm thinking about Andromeda's possible involvement in the next game. So look out for that video. Be sure to subscribe and all that stuff. But yeah, these mods I think were worth it. Most of them seem to hurt and or seem to not hurt anything and only improve the experience. And I highly suggest them. If there's any I missed that you really suggest, let me know down in the comments, and maybe I'll check those out the next time I do a playthrough. Otherwise, if you want more Mass Effect conversation, news, speculation, all of that, or just gaming related stuff in general, consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the like button so more people see the video, and consider becoming a YouTube member if you want videos like this one just a hair early, and if you want to support what I do. To see other ways to support the content I make, check out the links in the show description, and check out the links in there for any merch or any other content I am making. That is all I have for this one, so until next time.